Hi everyone, we're back for video number 2. This is the second video in our meetup material. If you haven't seen video 1, I strongly suggest you watch that first because this builds on that. In this one, we're going to look at an EMP scenario walkthrough. It's a step-by-step recreation to highlight the likely effects of an EMP on our infrastructure. And the purpose of it is simply to put you in that situation of an EMP attack or one from the sun and the grid is out, and make you think, basically, to try to get you to work out where your weaknesses are and what you need to do to get prepared so that you can survive this. We're going to start off by watching a video that I created for the presentation, and I'm going to narrate as we go. It's a short little video, and then we're going to walk through the scenario that I want you to walk through on your own time, as sort of a exercise for yourself. Anyway, let me get the video started. So you're at work at 1 o'clock, you're doing your work, and everything's normal. But 300 miles above you, you don't know this, but a nuclear device is detonated, and it immediately sends the electromagnetic pulse through the atmosphere down to the surface. You yourself don't notice anything. There would be no damage other than the power would go out. And you look around, you look for your phone, and you notice that your cell phone wouldn't start. After some time, your boss would probably send you home. You'd get outside and look around and notice there's no power anywhere in the city. You go out to your car to get into your car and maybe head home. You get to your car and you try to start it. You notice your car won't start. There's electricity in it, but there's nothing operating. So you know something's wrong. You're stranded. So you decide, well, maybe I need to walk home or headed out. You get out to the streets and you notice all the cars are stopped. Everywhere on the freeway, all the cars have stopped. So you decide you start trying to walk home in the sun. And you notice everybody's nervous, everybody's worried. And you try to make your way through to a gas station. You notice everybody's around it. There's only cash services because everything's down. So if you don't have cash, you can't buy even water. So you start trying to walk and see if you can even make it home. And within probably a couple of hours, darkness starts to fall and you're not even halfway home. The entire city is out. That's a simple little video that highlights what you would see. So let's walk through it. If you're at work, and I strongly recommend that you stop and think about every one of these things and put yourself in that position and walk your way through what would happen to you in your situation, because you're going to very quickly start to realize where you are dependent on everything and how vulnerable you will be in that situation if you haven't made other plans. So if you're at work and the power goes out, there's no electricity, your phone's out, even the landlines are out, which if you are my age and were around when landlines was all there was, you know that when power went out, your landline would still work because it was powered through the line. The phone line had power in it, and it would power your phone. So you could actually use your landlines in the past when power went out. We've now moved away from landlines to the point where all we have is cell phones, just about. Well, it wouldn't matter in this situation because your landlines would be dead as well. You notice there's no radio, television doesn't work. When your employer sends you home, you find your car is dead, it won't start. Nothing in it works. Pretty soon you realize that every car is dead, or just about. Part of what I'll be covering in the next couple of videos is that there are workarounds to just about every one of these issues that we are encountering here. But now you got hundreds and thousands of cars stranded on the freeway, and you decide to do the only thing you can think of, which is to walk home. Now, I don't know about you, but I work 35 miles away from where I live. So that's what I'm facing, 35-mile walk if I have no other alternative. How far do you work from home? And can you walk home? How long will it take you? The average walking pace is about 3 miles per hour. How about on a hot day? What about your conditioning? Are you in shape to walk that distance? That's a lot of walking if you're not used to it. So you start to walk home, panic starts to set in at work, something's terribly wrong. The sun is blazing. If you're in Houston, you know what our summers are like. Brutal. And after a few miles, you start to realize you haven't walked this far in a long time. You are out of shape. This is going to be very difficult. In just about an hour, you start to overheat. Are you going to get heat stroke? What can you do to deal with that? Do you know how to deal with heat stroke? Everywhere you look, you see strangers. People are confused. Some are panicked. People are staring at you. You get very, very tense very quickly in that situation. You determine that you need water if you have any chance of making it home. So you go to a gas station or convenience store, and their door is locked, and the sign says there no credit card machines are working, so cash only. You realize you have $5, so you push your way through the crowd and wave it at the clerk. He shakes his head, and then someone snatches your money from your hand. You realize that things are different now because they quickly realize they have no cash. And if you go walking around showing that you have money, you might not have it for long. Again, the respect that we show each other in society will quickly crumble away in this situation. It doesn't take much. You also realize you're wearing the worst shoes you can for walking. If you're a woman and you're used to wearing high heels to work, your alternatives are to try to walk in that home or barefoot. That's not going to work in the summer. Your clothes aren't also helping because you're not wearing clothes designed for walking 30 miles. As you walk further, you realize you're not even sure what direction you're going to. If you're at work and this happens and you decide to walk home, do you know how to get home other than maybe the route that you take to get to work, which is usually on a freeway? You're going to have to try to get home. And if you try to take a shortcut, do you know what neighborhoods you're going to be walking through? What if you end up in the bad parts of the city? So you start to wonder, maybe you'll be mugged if you go through those areas. Heck, you could be mugged walking just down the freeway in a situation like this. So now you've walked 5 miles. It's taken you over an hour and a half, and you have 30 more. In my case, I would have 30 more to go. It's going to be dark in a matter of hours. Where will you be then? Now step back from that. That's your situation. You're at work or somewhere else, and you're trying to make it home. What about your family? Where is each one of your family members? Can each of them get home? How far are they from home? Do all of you have a plan for this eventuality? Would they know what to do? If you have a teenage son, does he know, or will he know, how to determine that the power outage is not just a power outage, but actually an EMP? Because if he needs to react differently in that situation. All of these rules that we follow through in society need to go out the window the minute you recognize that you're in an EMP scenario. And that goes for all your family members. You know, the school might say, well, no, you have to stay here. In this situation, in this scenario, you need to tell your kids that they need to leave and go home. Forget about the rules, forget about what the teacher tells you. You need to get out of the room and go home. The longer you wait around, the more dangerous it's going to get. The more hours pass, the more stressed people are going to get, and the more danger there will be. So you need to quickly get out of that situation and head home and make it home as quick as possible. That's my plan for all of us. And you need to walk your way through with your family, and those that are old enough, you need to teach them how to figure this out and what they need to do. In this situation, obviously, it is to get home as quick as possible. If you and your family do get home, now I didn't even cover minors or little kids. What do you do if your kid's at the daycare or they're at elementary school? They can't walk home. They won't let them. Unlike a teenager or a high school kid who might say, I'm out of here, I'm going home, no matter what the teacher says, they're not going to physically restrain him. He can do it. But what about the 5-year-old, the 10-year-old? What are you going to do with them? You need to work that into your plan. If you do get home, what is your plan? There are terms in the prepper community called bug out or bug in. Bug out means you get out of the house, you get away from the city, away from civilization, out into whatever location you have set up already for you to survive this. Bugging in means you stay in whatever home you have and you plan to survive there. All right. Well, let's say you plan to bug in. You're going to stay home, and you've taught your family to in an EMP situation recognize it and get home. How long can you survive in your home? Well, there's 3 scenarios here, or 4 scenarios that you should keep in mind about survival. You can survive 3 minutes without air or oxygen unless you're in icy water. Well, that's not an issue. We're not talking about having no air or being in icy water, so scratch that. You can survive for 3 hours without shelter in a harsh environment unless it's icy water. Well, unless you're in extreme weather up north in the north of the country or in the deserts of Arizona, it's not a likely scenario. I mean, August in Houston could be rough, but it's if you do it carefully and you plan for it, you can survive it and you can get home. It might be uncomfortable, but you can do it. So that's possibly applicable. You can survive for 3 days without water. If sheltered and you're not in a harsh environment, you can survive for 3 days without water. How much water do you have at home? How much will you need to store and how much will you need for your trip home? All these things you need to think about, because this is something that you can come across, you will come across in that situation, and that is you're going to run out of water. As I mentioned, part of this is setting up the information, the situation, so that you can then understand what you need to do to prepare. So in the rest of the meetups and in other videos, I'm going to cover what you do to survive these things. But 3 days without water is the max, and you start to have trouble. So you need to plan for that. And you can survive with roughly for 3 weeks without food if you have water and you have shelter. So assuming you're staying home, you have shelter. So then your critical points are water and food. What about protection from others? From your neighbors, from people you come across in the street? What are you willing to do if you are starving? What are other people willing to do if they are starving? What are they willing to do in you to save your child from starvation or illness? How will you protect yourself and your loved ones from someone desperately trying to save their own family? We are so far removed from anything like this that we now look at it and think, oh, that'll never happen. This EMP scenario, an EMP attack, is extremely possible because it's not hard to do. It's not hard for some other country or some other organization like a terrorist group to actually do this to us. This is why it's so shocking that the country and our government is not up to speed on this and is not pushing it. There's a couple of congressmen who have been on it for some decades, and there's information in the resources about them and what they've been trying to do. At this point, I know that we have this has nothing to do with politics other than the current president Trump does have a close relationship with a congressman, former Congressman Newt Gingrich. And that's important to know, because Newt Gingrich does know about EMP. He is very well aware of this. One of the most popular books in this whole topic is, and I have it in the resources linked, is a book called 1 Second After. It is an amazing book for you to read. It walks you through this scenario and shows you what a small town would go through and what a small town would likely face in this scenario. That book was written because Newt Gingrich came out of the first commission report after he'd been briefed and he'd read it. He was terrified of what he had learned, and he joined with an author who again is linked in their resources, and he begged that author to write a book about this to get the American public aware of it, because Congress was doing nothing about it. And that book was written and it sold tons of books, but even then Congress has not moved on this. So that's basically what I wanted to cover through this scenario, is this information. But I really strongly recommend that you stop and really realistically put yourself in your own scenario, where you work, how far you are, what will you do, what can you do, and realistically examine that situation. It should frighten you that if this happens, you're going to be that vulnerable. The next scenario, or the next video I'm going to put up, also is relatively short. Only the first video is long because there's so much to cover about EMP and what it is and all that. This video is relatively short, so will be the next couple of videos as well. The next presentation, the next video, is a plan to prepare for the end of the world as we know it. So there's 2 more videos coming. How to prepare for that day, and then what to do on that day. So we'll talk then.